Students in Miss Aebischer's 8th grade English classes are perusing poetry. This week, we're hosting a Socratic Seminar. Let's hear from the students. What is a Socratic Seminar?
Socrates are classical Greek philosophers who convinced that the surest way to attain reliable knowledge was through the practice of disciplined conversation.
Socrates, who was a Greek philosopher living hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and all the studying that he did, believed that one of the best ways we can learn is through having conversations with each other. What can we clarify? What can we try to better understand?
Our first conversation was about love story with two goldfish. Remember from last week?
Grade ELA is an award-winning journalist whose work usually deals with science and the environment. In this poem, ELA explores the poem between two goldfish living in a fishbowl.
A life beyond was like out of the parentheses because it's showing like instead of in the bowl, like outside.
Stop it. How many of you got that? Think about parentheses. Think about the fish in the fishbowl, right? It kind of mimics that shape. And then what did you say about what is the only part that's not in parentheses?
A life beyond.
A life beyond, right? So outside of the fishbowl, you take those parentheses away. So she was very clever with the reasoning behind using those parentheses.
Bowled over, which is technically like rolled over.
Okay.
But it's because it's bowl, because they're fish.
Yeah.
You always hear like small towns are hard to escape, so it could be
Yeah.
two people growing up in the same small town.
Yeah.
She would sing not much, just the scales.
Just the scales.
Yeah.
That's really punny. The scales.
Like that's fish scales.
Fish scales and the
Music step.
music scales, right? I loved the line, submarine silence. That's alliteration, right? The repetition of the S. But when I think of how many of you would actually go down in a submarine if you were like given the opportunity? You're brave. That freaks me out. Like
In real life, if, let's say, the people broke up or did not be together anymore, drinking like alcohol, get drunk.
Okay.
I was wondering if anyone else caught up on that because it said he stares emptily through the glass.
There
Maybe
you
it's
go.
not the fishbowl he's staring through.
Yeah.
Then we discussed all the figurative language in slam, dunk, and hook.
Slam dunk and hook primarily describes the feelings of playing basketball as a youth. The racial tensions that define 1950s Deep South seem to exist just outside the edges of both the poem and the roundhouse where the boys play.
They're using a lot of similes. They have swish of strings like silk on the back. They have and glide like a sparrowhawk.
Good.
In basketball, you have 5 guards, and sometimes it's hard to get past the guards when you're trying to score, and a maze is
Yeah.
hard to
It's
escape.
like the maze through your opponent.
Mercury's how do you say that?
Insignia.
Insignia. It's referring to the wings on Mercury's sneakers.
Yeah. And who's Mercury? That comes from what?
He's the god of speed.
Yeah, right? Greek mythology again. So he's the god of speed. So what is that saying?
And it's also a game that's like, it has a timer, so it's kind of like Rush, so it's kind of like,
Yeah, what would you say the tone of this is? What's the pace of this poem?
Basketball.
Like a basketball game.
And we wrapped up by listening to an inaugural speech and the mood and tone that was conveyed.
We braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken but simply unfinished.
We seek harm to none, and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tried, we tried.
In this truth, in this faith, we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us.
Since history has its eyes on us, and that basically means if you mess up now, then people from the future will look back and realize how bad of a mistake that was.
Anything else about that particular line?
it's like a reference to Hamilton.
How many of you have seen Hamilton? Go ahead.
This kind of reminds me of I Have a Dream speech.
like to bridge over to that, where there was the part that said we will rise from the golden hills of the west, and then it had like the northeast, the midwestern, the south. That really reminded me of how it said in the I Have a Dream speech, it had like all the different states.
It did.
Kind of does relate to Martin Luther King because they both talk about potential, and it's kind of why, like, since the tone and mood are so powerful, it's all connected. It's kind of why it's just one stanza.
Yeah, like she's really passionate, right? And what do you do when you're passionate about something? Like you emphasize, and sometimes like you just can't stop. And so it's just like this continuation of the passion. Aaron.
Maybe since the stanzas in the other poems were meant to like separate the points of view, maybe it's all one stanza because it's mostly talking about the present and it's not talking about the past or the future. It's about the present.
She's not just speaking for herself or a group of people. It's always we or us. Like, it's always speaking for everybody.
It seemed like it was really hard at the beginning to understand a lot of stuff, and then we used the Swift method to get into it, and then it became a bit easier.
Okay, so having some specific things to look for to get the most meaning out of them. I like that.
I really like the gallery walk because you could just walk around and see all the different poems and like see what inspired them and all that. I really like that.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm really glad you guys enjoyed that. I think that's a great way to see a lot of different things. Anything else? Final thoughts?
Thing with like all poems is everybody has a different perspective on them. We all find like different hidden meanings in them.
Yeah. Give